worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome to Millennium TV 24 Global News Network. Today, here are today's headlines for March 9th, 2022. President Joe Biden has a solution for high inflation that seems counterintuitive. Bring factory jobs back to the U.S. This challenges a decades-long argument that employers move jobs abroad to lower their costs by relying on cheaper workers. The trend contributed to the loss of 6.8 million U.S. manufacturing jobs, but it also translated into lower prices for consumers and put downward pressure on inflation in ways that kept broader economic growth going. It was a trade-off that many corporate and political leaders were privately comfortable making. Now, with inflation at a 40-year high, the president has begun to argue that globalization is stoking higher prices. That's because proponents of outsourcing fail to consider the costs of increasingly frequent global supply chain disruptions. Recent disruptions have included the COVID-19 pandemic, shortages of basic goods like semiconductors, destructive storms and wildfires, and now the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which has sent oil prices soaring. Next news. Teachers may have been working longer hours. They're more stressed out. And many say they've considered quitting. Yet, the vast majority of teachers have stayed in the profession throughout the pandemic, according to Chalkbeat analysis of the latest data from a number of states and large school districts. Teacher resignation rates actually dipped after COVID first hit schools. As this year approached, the data shows departures generally returned to pre-pandemic levels. Together, the numbers indicate that a feared teacher exodus has not yet come to pass, although concerning signs about the health of the profession remain. I still worry, said Gemma Zamaro, a researcher at the University of Arkansas who has studied teacher turnover. Quotes, teachers are stressed and burned out. Even if they don't leave, that could be bad. End quotes. Comprehensive national data on teacher turnover is not available. The federal government does not keep annual records, and neither do some states, including California. Others, like Texas, release data on a year-long lag. Next news. Jose Collado settled in at a clean white table in a sunlit room, sang a few bars, and injected himself with heroin. After years of shooting up on streets and rooftops, he was in one of the first two facilities in the country where local officials are allowing illegal drug use in order to make it less deadly. Equipped and staffed to reverse overdoses, New York City's new privately run overdose prevention centers are a bold and contested response to a storm tide of opioid overdose deaths nationwide. Supporters say the sites, also known as supervised injection sites or supervised consumption spaces, are humane. They're humane. Realistic responses to the deadliest drug crisis in U.S. history. Critics see them as illegal and defeatist answers to the harm that drugs wreak on users and communities. To Collado, 53, the room he uses regularly is simply a blessing. Quotes, "They always worry about you, and they're always taking care of you," end quotes, he says. "They make sure you don't die," adds his friend Steve Baez. At 45, he's come close a couple of times. Next news. Noor Abu Karam's elation at completing one of her first varsity cross-country races quickly turned to disappointment when she failed to find her name among those of her high school teammates on the results list. To Abu Karam's shock, she learned she'd been disqualified for something she'd done all season as a Muslim athlete: wear a hijab. Quotes, "My worst nightmare just came true," end quotes, Abu Karam said this month as she recalled the October 2019 race in which her team from Sylvania Northview in suburban Toledo qualified for the Ohio Regional Championships. At the time, Ohio High School Athletic Association rules ban most head coverings and caps unless competitors received religious exemption waivers in advance. Abercromb's coach acknowledged making a mistake by not obtaining a waiver, but said he didn't think it was needed because it hadn't been an issue at previous races, at the prior races they had. We're going to take a short break from the daily English news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay tuned and stay with us. Thanks.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome back to Millennium TV 24 Global News Network. Here's a continuation of today's top stories. Vice President Kamala Harris's trip to Warsaw to thank Poland for taking in hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians fleeing Russia's invasion took an unexpected turn before she even left Washington. She'll be parachuting into the middle of unexpected diplomatic turbulence over fighter jets. The Polish government on Tuesday came out with a plan to transfer its Russian-made fighter planes to a U.S. military base in Germany, with the expectation that the planes would then be handed over to Ukrainian pilots trying to fend off Russian forces. In turn, the U.S. would supply Poland with US-made jets with corresponding capabilities, in quotes. But the Poles didn't run that idea past the Biden administration before going public with it, and the Pentagon quickly dismissed the idea as not tenable. Warplanes flying from a US and NATO base into airspace contested with Russia would raise the risk of the war expanding beyond Ukraine. Next news. Congressional leaders reached a bipartisan deal early Wednesday, providing $13.6 billion to help Ukraine and European allies, plus billions more to battle the pandemic as part of an overdue $1.5 trillion measure financing federal agencies for the rest of this year. Though a tiny fraction of the massive bill, the money countering a Russian blitzkrieg that's devastated parts of Ukraine and prompted Europe's worst refugee crisis since World War II, ensured the measure would pass with robust bipartisan support. President Joe Biden requested $10 billion for military, humanitarian, and economic aid last week, and Democratic and Republican backing was so staunch that the figure grew to $12 billion Monday and $13.6 billion just a day later. Quotes, "We're going to support them against tyranny, oppression, and violent acts of subjugation." End quotes. Biden said at the White House. Party leaders plan to whip the 2,741-page measure through the White House on Wednesday and the Senate by week's end. Though that chamber's exact timing was unclear. Lawmakers were spurred by the urgency of helping Ukraine before Russia's military might make it too late. Excuse me. Next news. Even though Russia has lost influence and friends since the collapse of the Soviet Empire in 1989, the nuclear superpower still holds sway over several of its neighbors in Europe and keeps others in an uneasy neutrality. The Russian invasion of neighboring Ukraine and the humanitarian tragedy it provoked over the past 2 weeks have raised a Western outcry of heartfelt support and spawned calls for a fundamental rethink of how the geopolitical map of Europe should be redrawn in the future. To anchor that in, the reality of 2022 is far more difficult than may appear at first sight. Nudging Ukraine, Europe's second largest country, fully into the Western fold against the will of Moscow poses massive problems. And European Union leaders will confront them together head on during what could become a bruising 2-day summit at Versailles, just outside Paris, starting Thursday. Forced into assessment by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky when he amazingly signed an official request to become an EU member last week. Next news. 2 weeks into its war in Ukraine, Russia has achieved less and struggled more than anticipated at the outset of the biggest land conflict in Europe since World War II. But the invading force of more than 150,000 troops retains large and possibly decisive advantages in firepower as they bear down on key cities. Moscow's main objective, toppling the Kiev government and replacing it with a more Kremlin-friendly leadership, remains elusive, and its overall offensive has been slowed by an array of failings, including a lack of coordination between air and ground forces and an inability to fully dominate Ukraine's beautiful skies. The Pentagon on Tuesday estimated that Russia retains about 95% of the combat power it has deployed in Ukraine, accounting for weapons and vehicles destroyed or made inoperable, as well as troops killed and wounded. Those losses, while modest at first glance, are significant for 2 weeks of fighting. We're going to take a short break from the daily English news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you so much.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome back. Hi, and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Network. Here's the continuation of today's top stories. Here we go. Renewed efforts to rescue civilians from increasingly dire conditions in besieged and bombarded Ukrainian cities were underway Wednesday. Days of shelling have largely cut residents of the southern city of Mariupol off from the outside world and forced them to scavenge for food and water. Meanwhile, the decommissioned Chernobyl nuclear site was knocked off the power grid Wednesday and forced to switch onto generators. A worrying new development that raised alarm about the plant's ability to keep its nuclear fuel safety cool. Authorities Authorities announced another ceasefire to allow civilians to escape from Mariupol. Sumy in the northeast, Enerhodar in the south, Volnovakha in the southeast, Izium in the east, and several towns in the region around the capital, Kiev. Previous attempts to establish safe evacuation corridors have largely failed due to attacks by Russian forces. And there were few details on Wednesday's new effort. It was not clear if anyone was able to leave Mariupol. But some people did start streaming out of Kiev's suburbs, even as air raid sirens repeatedly went off in the capital and explosions could be heard there. Next news. The Venezuelan government has freed two jailed Americans, including an oil executive imprisoned alongside colleagues for more than 4 years, as it seeks to improve relations with the Biden administration amid Russia's war with Ukraine. The White House announced Tuesday night. Gustavo Cardenas was released following a secret weekend visit to Venezuela by senior Biden administration officials, the first White House trip to the county in more than 2 decades. Also freed was Jorge Fernandez, who was arrested last year on what the White House described as spurious charges. Quotes, "These men are fathers who lost precious time with their children and everyone they love, and their families have suffered every day of their absence," end quotes. President Joe Biden said in a statement. The release came hours after Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro signaled an interest in improving relations at a time when Russia's invasion Russia's invasion of Ukraine sparked concerns in the United States over rising gas prices. In a televised address, he appeared to indicate he was willing to accede to U.S. demands, that he would resume negotiations with his opponents as a first building block for any relief from U.S. sanctions that have been punishing the OPEC nation for years. Next news. Scientists say they have found the sunken wreck of polar explorer Ernest Shackleton's ship Endurance, more than a century after it was lost to the Antarctic ice. The Falklands Maritime Heritage Trust, excuse me, says the vessel lies 3,000 meters, 10,000 feet below the surface of the Weddell Sea, about 6.4 kilometers, 4 miles south of the location recorded in 1915 by its captain Frank Worsley. An expedition set off from South Africa last month to search for the ship, which was crushed by ice and sank in November 1915. Menson Bound, director of exploration for the Endurance 22 expedition, said footage revealed the ship to be in remarkably good condition. Quotes, "This is by far the finest wooden shipwreck I have ever seen," end quotes, he said. "It is upright, well prowed, clear of the seabed, intact, and in a brilliant state of preservation. You can even see Endurance arced across the stern, directly below the taffrail." End quotes. Next news. Dancers are torn between body and mind. Physically on stage in Paris, but in spirit back home in Kiev. In other circumstances, the Kiev City Ballet's residency at the Théâtre du Châtelet would be a dream come true. But the stranded company of young dancers feels little but heartbreak. Quotes, "We are both physically and emotionally exhausted," end quotes. Ekaterina Kozlova, the company's deputy director, told the Associated Press. Quotes, "Everyone in the ballet is worried about their families, loved ones, friends, colleagues at home. It's been very difficult," end quotes. The Théâtre du Châtelet, in the heart of the French capital, offered them the stage on Tuesday for the last show of a French tour that has left the company stranded after the war broke out in Ukraine. The dance director of the Paris Opera, along with some of her company's best, joined them for an open class before performing together a medley of ballet classics, with excerpts from Russian composer Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake and The Nutcracker. We're going to take a short break from the daily English news of Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Network. Please stay with us. Thank you.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome back to today's top head stories going on Global News TV 24 Millennium TV. Here's a continuing. Oh my God! Here's a continuation. Here's a continuation of today's news. After bombs started falling in her hometown of Kharkiv, Anna Maria Maslovska left her friends, her toys, and her life in Ukraine, and set off on a days-long journey with her mother toward safety in the West. After finally crossing the Hungarian border by train along the hundreds of other Ukrainian refugees, the 10-year-old Maslovska said she had begun to worry about her friends in Kharkiv after the messages she sent them on Viber went unanswered. Quotes, I really miss them because I can't contact them. They just read my messages, and that's all. I really worry because I don't know where they are, she said in a clear English from inside the train station at the border town of Zahone. Anna Maria, who was raised alone by her mother, is more than 1 million children who have fled Ukraine in the less than 2 weeks since Russia first invaded the country, something UNICEF spokesperson James Elder called a dark historical first. Next news. South Koreans were voting for a new president Wednesday with an outspoken liberal ruling party candidate and a conservative former prosecutor considered the favorites in a tight race that was aggravated domestic divisions. Pre-election surveys showed liberal Lee Jae-myung, a former governor of South Korea's most populous Gyeonggi province, and his main conservative challenger, ex-prosecutor General Yoon Suk-yeol, with neck-and-neck support with ahead of 10 other contenders. The winner will take office in May and serve a single 5-year term as leader of the world's 10th largest economy. Lee and Yoon conducted one of the most bitter political campaigns in recent memory. Both recently agreed that if they won, they would not conduct politically motivated investigations against the other. But many believe the losing candidate could still face criminal probes over some of the scandals they've been implicated in. Next news. Next news, please. Australia's government said Wednesday it is suspending the country's coronavirus vaccination mandate for most adults, arguing that there's no need to implement it at present only a week before its enforcement was due to begin. The mandate for people age 18 and over became law in early February. Uh, in early February, 2.5 months after the plan was first announced amid a surge of cases that sent the country into a since lifted lockdown. By the time the legislation was in place, though much of the sense of urgency had disappeared, the plan was for police to start checking people's vaccination statuses in mid-March, for example, during traffic stops. People who can't produce proof of vaccination would be asked in writing to do so and would be fined up to 600 euros, around $650 equivalent of, if they don't. Fines could reach 3,600 euros if people contest their punishment. Next news. Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam said Wednesday that reducing the skyrocketing number of deaths in the latest coronavirus surge is the city's priority, putting a plan to test the entire population on hold in the latest flip-flop in the government's pandemic response. Lam said there is no specific time frame for citywide testing, 2 weeks after she announced it would happen this month. Her earlier announcement, coupled with rumors of an accompanying lockdown of the city, left store shelves bare as residents stockpiled daily necessities. In quotes. Now the situation is that planning and preparation are still underway, but it is not a priority to do mass testing. When to do it will be a collective decision and will take into account the opinions of experts, said Lam. This has been the daily global news update of Millennium News TV 24/7. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for watching. Please log in to get the latest news on all of our social networking sites: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. On TikTok, we are Millennium News 24. Also, what you should really check out is our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is News Channel M24. That's News Channel M24 on YouTube. Like, subscribe, and please leave a comment. Leave a comment. Let us know how we're doing, at least. Viewers, now both on network broadcasting, Android and iOS devices, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, also all smart TV platforms. Okay? Please enjoy our entertainment and latest news and views. Our Millennium TV apps, Millennium TV USA Android, and Millennium News Google. So you can Google us as well. Okay. Also look up www.millenniumnews24.com. Okay, that's 2 L's and 2 N's. Stay with us. Millennium News 24. Thank you from all of us here at Millennium TV, and God bless you. Wish you a pleasant day. Thank you. Peace.